We are going to talk about like how to scale your PostgreSQL connections that will actually accept like more number of requests. That's what we are going to talk about. So this is about me, myself, Bhavanesh. Also, people call me as data guy because like I started my career as a DBA, then I slowly moved into data architect role. So I'm right now I'm doing all kind of data engineering works. So that's why I keep myself as a data guy name. Yeah, and these are my social media handle, and I do write blogs about databases, data engineering technologies, and distributed databases. If you have some free time, please go and see my blog post. Yeah, if you are really interested. And this is nothing but a disclaimer. It's all about my personal experience with PostgreSQL and PG Bouncer. You don't need to take screenshot of this deck because I have given the link in my last slide. You can download it. Okay, so you don't need to take screenshot in between. Let's bear with me for 30 minutes and let's learn about PG Bouncer. Okay, this is what we are going to talk about today. So like if you're actually opening a connection in PostgreSQL, right? This is not like comparing with other databases like MySQL or SQL Server. It is something different. And you're going to see what is the cost for a single PostgreSQL database connection. And then why do we need a connection pooler? And then here we are going to talk about obviously PG Bouncer and what is it, how it's going to work. And if you want to like, if you want to do some magic with PG Bouncer, what kind of magic that you can do with that? We are going to see that as well. And finally, like how do we monitor it? And then some of the deployment best practices we are going to see today. Okay, now first of all, whenever you are touching PostgreSQL for first time, you may heard about this. Maybe your senior manager or your senior DBA, they might told like don't keep the connections more than like 200 or 300. Even in my experience, very larger companies, they use only maximum 500. That's it. They are actually not setting the connections more than that. What's the reason behind this? But in MySQL, it's not like that. I have like the environment I'm handling, I have actually set connections up to 2000, 3000, something like that. But in PostgreSQL, the maximum connection I set is only 500. I never increase the size more than that. What's the reason behind this? Now let's understand how MySQL actually handling these connections altogether. Okay, then we'll go and see why PostgreSQL is actually very bad in handling the such kind of large connections. I'm going to show you a little bit of illustration, like how MySQL is actually handling the connections. Okay. Now let's think about there's a client application, and then you have a MySQL server, and then the moment when a client initiated a request, right, it will go and start creating the connection. The first level in the process will be like your authentication. So it will go and verify whether you have the proper permission, etc. And once it is done, that moment MySQL will create a new thread. That is your actual connection. That thread is called user thread. So the moment when you create a connection, authentication successful, you will get a user thread. And then this user thread will create something called THD. THD is nothing but a special data structure. The moment when user thread is created, this THD will be created. And when you disconnect, the THD also will be disconnected. Now, after this, it will start executing your queries. Okay. And then it will send the results back to the client. And once our query got executed successfully, now the work is done, right? The client will request close statement, like you are actually exit from the prompt or you are killing the connection, whatever. You are closing the connection, right? The moment when you close the connection, it is like a com quit call in MySQL. That's the technical time. The moment when you close the connection, right? What MySQL will do, it will actually, instead of killing that user thread, it will put into a cache. This is what the magic happening in MySQL, which is interesting piece that is called thread cache. So you everybody know that, right? Creating a new connection or creating a new fork in Linux system, which is not a simple process. This is a bit costliest one. So that's why MySQL having something called thread cache. Instead of killing the thread, it will actually go and put the thread into thread cache. Let's see here, there are two threads are already available in the cache. Now this user thread also will go back to the thread cache. And this is how MySQL is actually having, like, it can able to handle more connections at scale. And I explained only about thread cache, but there are so many things are available in MySQL. For example, like thread pool is there, resource group is there, connection multiplexing, and few other features will help MySQL to handle large number of connections at scale. But in PostgreSQL, we don't have anything like thread cache or thread pool. Nothing is there. In PostgreSQL, a connection is just a connection. That's it. It won't have any caching mechanism and all. And that's why opening more connections on PostgreSQL is bad. Now let's see what is the cost for a single PostgreSQL connection. Um, According to a research done by Heroku team, I think it's almost 6 years back. They have done a testing. Like they tried to open connections on the PostgreSQL, which is not doing anything. Just open the connection and then see how much memory it is consumed. And they identified roughly 10 megabyte memory consumed by each connections. Think about one more time. This is they're not doing any queries. They are just simply open the connection and keep it open. That's it. Now each connection will eat up to 10 megabytes MB. And also every connection will open 1000 files concurrently. Where it is coming from, this 1000 files. If you try to fine tune the PostgreSQL, right, there's a parameter called max files per server process. So this parameter, you can actually mention how many files concurrently can be opened by every connection. And by default, this is 1000. So the moment when you create a new connection, it will actually eat 10 megabyte of memory. And this is also approximate. I'm not saying it will exactly, it will consume 10 MB, but roughly it may be more than that or less than that, but roughly 10 megabyte it will consume. Also, it will open 1000 files in the backend. Now let's compare this with an example. In this example, let's say I'm going to configure my PostgreSQL. Like it will start consuming 400 connections. Okay. Now the moment when you create 400 connections, right? So each connection will take 10 megabyte, right? So altogether, the empty connection itself will eat 4 GB memory, and then this whole process will open 400K files in your Linux subsystem. And see, this is nothing, just a 400 connection you're opening. You are not doing anything, but it will consume 4 GB amount of memory in it. That is the reason why PostgreSQL is not good for scaling the connections. Okay, this is one common problem. Everybody might aware about this. Okay. And there is a one more bad guy in PostgreSQL, that is called idle connections. There are 4 stages in the transaction in PostgreSQL. The first one is active, which means like the query is doing something, it is executing. Second one is idle. He is the very bad guy. Okay, I will tell you why he is very bad. The third one is like idle in transactions, which means somebody trying to execute something, it is executed, but it is before starting the next execution, they need some input. So basically, they didn't complete it work. They are waiting for something. Okay, but the actual process is still there. That is called idle in transaction. And finally, idle in transaction aborted. This is similar to the previous step. If those connections are doing something and waiting for some input, if we kill the connection, then it will come to idle in transaction aborted. Now let's see what this idle guy is doing. So, okay, whenever you are opening, think about you are opening a connection in your pSQL prompt, and you are actually setting some variables like set transaction isolation level equal to read committed something, and you are going to create some temporary tables, right? And these things will not be destroyed until you close the connection. According to you, your execution is done. You created some temporary tables and you did some process, that's it. But until you close the connection, that still the connection will hold the memory of how much you have in your temporary table. That's why he is actually very bad. There is one more interesting research recently published in AWS blog. Okay, so they did a benchmark. So what they have done, they opened 100 connection to the Postgres DB, and they let the connections will be stay on the Postgres for 10 minutes. Then they closed it. You want to see the interesting result? See here. So the moment when they start importing the connections, right? Like they are opening the connections. The moment when they create in the connections, and you can see the amount of available memory drastically reduced. See, it almost consumed like more than 5 GB, which is very bad, right? And the moment when they close the connection, again, the PostgreSQL got more memory. So This is one of the interesting blog I have read recently. I think they published it very recently. I have given the link here. If you have some time, just go and see that. Okay. So what we can do if your PostgreSQL is getting more and more number of connections, we need a superhero, right? Okay. Who is that superhero? Guess what? Iron Man or Captain America? No, Black Panther. Okay. Actually, we don't want Black Panther to solve our database problems. We need someone called PG Bouncer. And yeah, and one more personal note, I'm not a Marvel fan. Don't think about it. I like this Jiffy. That's why I added it here. Okay. So DC fans, calm down. Okay. Let's see what is this PG Bouncer and what it is doing. So PG Bouncer is actually a middle layer. You can deploy it on a different instance altogether, or you can deploy in bundled with your application, but it's a separate software you have to install. This is a lightweight connection pooler, and it will help you to drastically reduce your backend connections. Okay, you can see this here, right? In this example. So your application generating more connections, but when you're talking through PG Bouncer, the amount of backend connections will be reduced. In upcoming slide, we will see how this things works internally, but just understand the concept, okay? This is connections economy, which means like in PostgreSQL, I mentioned, right? Each connection will consume some amount of memory and it will open some files. Also, they will acquire a lock, something called pro array lock. This is also a bit costly operation in the PostgreSQL. And that's why if you keep a PG Bouncer kind of connection pooler, right? They already have this connection already open to the database. So you don't need to create again and again. And then finally, you don't need any special authentication. So PG Bouncer will understand everything about PostgreSQL. They understand the PostgreSQL terminology and principles. So you don't need to have a special authentications for PG Bouncer. Whatever method you are using right now, the same connection method and then the same authentication method will work. Okay. Okay. Now let's understand generally what a connection pooler will do. I'm not talking about PG Bouncer specifically. I'm talking about commonly what a connection pooler will do. Let's see it with an illustration. So left hand side you have applications, and the middle layer you have a connection pooler. In this example, I have taken PG Bouncer, but you can consider any connection pooler. Okay, and this is your backend database. And then the moment like each connection pooler will have something called a pool. So pool is nothing but a group of connection that is keep open to your database system like this. So here I have mentioned pool size equal to 3, which means 3 connections will keep open to the database server. Now the other component called queue. This is nothing but all the incoming connections, right? Whatever connections you are generating from the application, they will first hit the queue part first. Then based on the pool's availability, each connection will move from the queue to the pool. So I'll just show you an example here. Let's now open the connection. So you are opening connections 1, 2, and 3, and you are opening more connections. Okay. So the connection pooler will go and see, is there any available pools are there? If the pools are free, they are not connected by any connections, then they will start sending those connections to the connection pool. So this is how generally a connection pooler will work. And then the connection between application and queue is called client connection, and the connection between the connection pooler to Postgres called server connections. Okay, so now you have a little bit understanding about what a connection pooler will do. Now let's deep dive into the PG Bouncer part. Okay, so what PG Bouncer is actually doing and its some of its components. PG Bouncer is having 3 different pooling mode. And the first one is session, which is very default mode. Okay, so you can by default, whenever you install PG Bouncer, you will get session is the default pooling mode. Okay, this mode is actually transparent to the client. What does it mean by transparent? So the connection between client and the PG Bouncer and PG Bouncer to PostgreSQL will be same. Whatever the parameter or session level variable you are setting, right, it will be only allocated for this. In other simple words, the connection will be dedicated to your client. So the connection between PostgreSQL and PG Bouncer is dedicated to your client. Let's see this in an example. So here is the application and your PG Bouncer and PostgreSQL. The moment when the application start creating a connection, it will go to PG Bouncer. PG Bouncer will open a connection to PostgreSQL. So whatever the queries you are running, right, everything that particular connection will send all of its queries to this dedicated backend connection. And similarly like this. And the moment when you close one of these connections from the application end, right, the backend connection also will be closed. So it's like a normal mode without any connection pooler. Okay. And the second mode, transactions, a lot of people like this mode because um, from the front end, right, from application to PG Bouncer, we can open n number of connections. But this PG Bouncer will see is there any open connections and will send the transaction to that particular backend connections. Okay. And but this supports multi-statement, which means like inside the begin and end, how many queries you have given, they all will be executed in a one single backend connection. Let's see it in an example. So here is you are going to start your first transaction, which is doing some insert and delete. Okay. And then the application will open a connection to PG Bouncer and PG Bouncer will start executing it. Now there is one more guy who is coming and he want to do some update and drop. Now think about the transaction one is already completed. Okay, this guy is done. Now this time when the transaction 2 begins, it will open a connection to the PG Bouncer, but PG Bouncer will understand, okay, there is already one open connection which is already available. So instead of creating a new connection, it will use the existing connections. Now you can clearly see that, right? So within one backend connections, you can execute both the transactions. According to application, it opened 2 connections, but from the backend, it is actually used only 1 connections. So this is actually most commonly used method, but unfortunately there's a drawback. So for example, if you open the connections from PG Bouncer to PostgreSQL, right? If this transaction set any session level variables, they won't work here because, for example, like they both are using the same connections, right? If you already set some session level variables, it will be applied to this transaction as well. So you have to make sure that what kind of variables you're going to use session level and then decide the right pooling mode. And we have one more pooling mode, which is called statement based. Okay, this is the most aggressive mode in the PG Bouncer because like this mode won't support multi-statement. So if you're trying to execute begin and end, and if you're trying to execute multiple statement inside, it won't work at all. Okay. But what it will do, it will actually get all the queries from multiple connections and send it into one or few backend connections. And here auto commit is always on. So let's see an example. So somebody is running a transaction 1. So I already mentioned it won't support multi-statement inside a begin and end statement. So according to the end user, these are individual queries. Okay, he will try to execute something, and it will open the connections. Like if you already have like 3 different sessions already open, insert will go into one backend connection, update will go into different one, and delete will go into a different one. So there is no guarantee that your transaction will go into the same backend connections. But here it is not guaranteed. It can go into any open connections. Okay, so in this case, there are 3 connections which are already open. So it actually got the transaction from the user and it actually sent across multiple connections. Okay, that's why it can run all these queries parallelly and which is very fast. At the same time, be careful while applying this because it won't support multi-statement and some prepare statement also will not work in this case. Okay, but so how do you choose the right method? It's up to the developers who know their application strategy. But in most cases, transaction mode will support most of the things. Even some applications like Elixir and all, they do support the prepare statement for transaction pooling mode. Okay. Now let's see how to configure this PG Bouncer. So the first thing you have to do is you need to make a connection string. So you need to tell PG Bouncer like how many PostgreSQL servers are there and how many databases are there. And this is a common pattern which is actually used by the DBAs. So for example, this is a DB1 and make sure that this is the name for the connection string, but this must have the actual database name. If you randomly give something, it won't work. So this name must be same as your database name. Okay. And then the host, you can give IP address or DNS name or whatever you can give it. And DB name, you can give something. Okay. And then, for example, this is for like database level. But if we have more database in PostgreSQL, then what you can do? Then you can simply mention star. So the connection will be approved for all the databases. Okay. This is the common pattern, but you can customize it. For example, if you want to dedicatedly allocate like 50 pools for this connection, we can do it. So we can add like multiple parameters are available. We can add everything in the connection string. So these are the available parameters. Okay, you can just add it. Okay, here is another interesting and important thing about the PG Bouncer. Let's say for a PostgreSQL server, you mentioned pool size equal to 10. Okay, which means this is not correct. I mean, from the backend connections, it will not open only 10 connections. It can open more. Depends on what. That's the second condition. The number of databases you have and the number of users you have. Based on this, it will decide the number of backend connections. And here is the formula. So like number of databases here we have 10 and number of users we have 2. So totally we have 20 connections. Okay. But according to your configuration, you just mentioned the pool size as 10. But no, it won't work in that way. Okay. So make sure while mentioning the pool size, it has to be like the value of both number of users and the number of databases. Okay. Now let's see. So I mentioned, right, this PG Bouncer will support like same PostgreSQL authentication methods. What are the methods are available and how do you use it? The first method, which is the default one, called auth file. This is nothing but a text file where you need to mention your username and password. Okay. So this can be plain text. You can just plainly mention like username colon password. The password can be plain text. Also, you can use MD5 hash, okay, which is the recommended method. Don't use a plain passwords. It won't actually work. Okay. I mean, it's not secure. And then these are the supported auth types. This is similar to your PG HBA config file. You have something called MD5 trust and all, right? So here also it is supported. Okay. And then the second thing, PG HBA file. Yes, this is the format is very similar to your PostgreSQL only. So you can mention like the host name, IP address. It's like a like where to allow the connection and etc. Right? The same syntax will work here. The third method is auth user and query. This is the another interesting thing. Let's say you don't want to put a actual username and password in the auth file. Instead, what you can do, you can create a like less privileged user. Okay, and then you can actually use that user to talk to Postgres and get the username password from the its system tables. Then it will use the credential. This is another interesting method, but all three methods needs this auth file, which is very important. So it's up to you choose which method you want, but all three methods, they need a auth file. So if you want to keep it more simple, just use auth file only. You don't care about other methods, okay? Or if you want a more secure one, then go for auth user with auth query. So this auth user means like it will actually talk to PostgreSQL using a credential. That credential will be taken from the auth file, and then it will start executing some queries. You can give any queries, okay? It's like here is the example query, but you can actually create a separate table and hash your username and password there. Then you can give the table name also. That also will work. Okay, so it's up to you to decide what table you can create for an actual username and password. And this is the configuration from the PG Bouncers. How do you mention the authentications? This is the default one. It is already enabled trust, and then the username and password will be taken from the this text file. Okay. So this is the HBA file method. Here you need to mention the path for HBA file. And if you want to use auth query, you can actually use it. This is the command, is the example command, but yeah, you can use any of your command if you have a different custom tables for saving username and password inside it. But make sure the passwords must be hashed. So these are the other parameters which talks about how do you configure proper connections and the pool. The first parameter is like max client. This is very similar to like max connections in PostgreSQL. So in your PG Bouncer, how many connections it can accept? But in Postgres, we'll keep very less amount, right? Here you can have it like even large numbers. I set like 6K, sometimes 10K also, depends on your PG Bouncer instance type, okay? So this is the maximum number of connections will be accepted by the PG Bouncer. The next thing is default pool size, which means how many connections you are giving to in the pool. So only that many connections can be opened to your backend database. This should be very limited. So don't open like 500,000 like that. Okay. If your database will support up to 400 connections, then keep like 300 something. Okay. So only that many connections will be open to your backend database. And other variable, minimum pool size, which means like uh, how many connections you want to keep always open, which is the minimal one that you can mention here. And this is something interesting: reverse pool, reserve pool, and then reserve pool timeout. For example, you have something like 100 pools, okay, which means 100 concurrent connections can be open to Postgres database, but you have more incoming connections. So what will happen? Then the connections will wait for some particular interval. Then they will actually open something called reserve pool. You can reserve some amount of connection for emergency purpose. If your pool is already full, then after some particular time, if the connections are waiting for these many seconds, then they can actually utilize the pools from the reserve pool. This is for some emergency purpose, you can use it, but make sure you will allocate less number of values. Something like 5 or 10 would be more optimal value. Okay. I have a different slide too that explain the whole flow, how it works. We will see it in the upcoming slide. Now, this is an example of how Postgres PG Bouncer makes connection to the PostgreSQL. Let's say this is the default pool I have mentioned is 20, and the pool mode is session. Now, there is one application which is talking to the database with 5 connections, and the second application, this is also talking to the same database with 5 users. Okay, so it is session mode, so they will open their dedicated connections, right? So PG Bouncer will open 5 connections for app 1 and 5 connections for app 2. Then at the end, PostgreSQL will open 10 connections. Now let's see how it is going to change if you have a different users or different databases. Okay. Now let's say your pool size is 20, but user 1 is trying to open 15 connection and user 2 also opening the 15 connections. According to your pool size, this is only 20 you opened it, but it will not work in this way. If you remember, I mentioned a rule, right? The number of connections open to be PostgreSQL depends on 2 things: number of databases into number of users. Here, number of databases actually 1, but you have 2 different users. So the pool size will be increased twice. So you will get 30 connections here. Now, how do we solve it? Let's say like I mentioned only pool size 20, but why PG Bouncer is opening more connections? It's because of that internal mechanism. It depends on your number of databases and the number of users. Is there any way to control it? Because if it is going like this, for example, in future, if you're adding more database and more users, it will be a problem, right? They can actually override the default pool size value. Then how do we control it? For that, you have 2 different parameters. One is max DB connection. This is the hard limit for a specific database. For example, in a PostgreSQL server, you have 2 databases, means you can set the hard limit for each database. For example, DB1 should accept 100 connections. DB2 should accept only 50 connections. You can control the number of connections based on the database level, or you can control it on the user level. For example, user 1 can open 100 connections. User 2 can open only like 10 or 20 connections. It depends on you to decide it. But these are the hard limit values. How many connections you are getting, it doesn't matter. They will put a hard stop based on these variables. Okay. And this is the sample configuration file. This is another method. Actually, you can actually hard code these 2 variables in the connection string. So something like this, it won't open more than this number of connections. Okay, now I'm going to show you a real-time illustration, like how actually PG Bouncer works in the backend. Okay, I will illustrate step-by-step flow. For this is my configuration. My PostgreSQL can accept up to 300 connections. This is my PostgreSQL server level configuration. Okay, and I have only one database, I have only one user, and I mentioned pool size is 120. It won't go more than that because I have one database and only one user. So my pool size will not grow. Okay, it will be fixed size. And I mentioned pool mode is session. Number of client connections can be up to 4,000. And I have something called reserve pool, which is 10, and reserve pool timeout is 10 seconds. Now let's see how PG Bouncer actually handle this. So this is your application and your PG Bouncer and PostgreSQL. Now in PG Bouncer, like as I mentioned in the common connection pooler, there are two important pieces. One is the pool, the second one is the queue, which is also called as waiting area. Okay, so according to my configuration, my pool size will be 120, and then waiting area, which is a queue, it can accept up to 4,000. So what is the value of 4,000? This is actually maximum number of client connection can be acceptable by the PG Bouncer. Okay, now your application is sending 200 connections. Now PG Bouncer will go and see the pool size. We have only 120, right? So first 120 connection will go to the active pool, which means your PG Bouncer pool, it will go. The remaining 80 connections, right? They will go back to the waiting area. Okay. Now 120 connections already went to the pool. They will open the connections to the PostgreSQL server and they will start executing it. And then let's say in that 120 connection, 10 queries are successfully executed and they return the results to the applications. Now you have 10 free connections, right? Those 10 free connections will go back to the pool. Now your PG Bouncer will understand, okay, there are 10 connections are available in the pool. Now it will go to the waiting area and take next 10 connections because you have only 10 connections available and you have 80 pending connections. In that 80 connections, whoever comes first, that first 10 connections, it will send from waiting area to the active pool. Now they will start executing it. They will reach to the server connections and then they will start executing it and they will send the results back to the client. This flow will continue. This is kind of infinity loop. The same flow will continue until you restart something. Now, here is one more interesting piece about PG Bouncer. Let's say here there are like 80 connections are waiting, right? How long they can wait? For example, if you are running a campaign and like more connections and very high priority, right? How long they can wait? They can wait until somebody finish their work, right? But which is very bad. We don't know when they are going to complete. And that's why PG Bouncer is something called reserve pool. So if any connection is waiting more than X number of seconds, those connection can move to the reserve pool. So in this case, I have mentioned the timeout value equal to 5, which means if any connection, if they are waiting for more than 5 seconds, those connection will move to the reserve pool. Reserve pool is again, it is similar to the pool only, but they are dedicatedly used for if your active pool is full and your connections are waiting for so longer time, then they can go back to the reverse pool, and then they can talk to the database directly. Okay. Now from the backend database, you have active 120 connections plus 10 more connections coming from the reserve pool. So totally 130 connections. And this is how PG Bouncer handle the waiting connections also. Okay. And make sure this will be lesser in size. Don't open like more than 100 connections, which is very bad. This is only for emergency purpose. Okay. And yeah, this is the overall illustration. Okay, now we are going to talk about what kind of magic that you can do with the PG Bouncer. The first one we are going to talk about zero downtime maintenance. Okay, I'm actually going to simulate a scenario. So what kind of scenario is, let's say you have a PostgreSQL database which is having its own standby, and all of my connections will talk to my primary instance. I want to do some maintenance on the master node. Okay, which means like I have to apply some patches or something and I need a restart. If I restart it directly, it will affect my applications, right? They will not reach the connection due to the restart. So I want to do the seamless switchover to the standby instance without knowing, application will not know there is a switchover happened, and without dropping any connections, you can actually do this. Let's see how we can do this. Okay. Here is our PG Bouncer layer, and PG Bouncer is having something called queue waiting area. And then all the applications will start connecting to the PG Bouncer. They will go to the waiting queue. Okay. and then they will talk to the pool. Based on how many connections are available in the pool, they will talk to the pool and the connections will go to the actual database. This is how the normal process. Now, the moment when you decide, okay, we'll start the switchover. Now, what we can do, you can actually go to the configuration file and then just change the host name of your primary to secondary. It was like primary. Now I'm going to change the host name into standby name or IP, whatever you can give it, okay, and save it. But the moment when you save, it won't take it immediately. You have to restart the PG browser to apply this change. But if we do restart, all these connections will be dropped, right? And then your application will throw an error, something like not able to reach the server. So how do we do it in online? I mean, without affecting the applications. And that's why you need to actually do something called pause. Okay. This pause command, what it will do, it will actually it will do two things. One, it won't send any connections from the waiting area to the pool. This is the first work it will do. So if you are sending, if your application is sending any connections, they all actually will go to the waiting area, but it never move to the pool. And this pool is depends on max number of client connections. Okay. And the second thing, it will actually wait for is there any connections that are still running, because you already stopped the incoming traffic. Okay. And it will check the pool, is there any connection still executing? Okay. And if they are waiting executing, it will wait until they commit. The moment when you realize that, okay, there is no connections on the Postgres, they all are executed, then you can run something called reload. What this command will do, it will actually apply the change from the config file to runtime. So what are changes we made, right? Now this change will be applied into your pgmonster database. And the moment when you apply it, right? Okay, pgmonster will understand, okay, there is a change in the connection. We were talking to PostgreSQL master. Now the new configuration is talking to the standby instance. Then they will start pointing the connections to the standby instance. Okay. And it will create the pool accordingly. And finally, once the connections are reloaded, now you can run something called resume. Now all the pending connections from the waiting queue will move to the pool, and the pool will route these connections to the standby instances. So this you can do it without any restart, and your application will never know there is a switchover happened. This is one very cool feature which I really like, and we already applied it in our production. It works really well. Okay, so far it is a good thing, right? But is there any drawback? Definitely there will be some drawback. Let's see what are they. So here you are putting all the connections on hold, right? Like up to 4,000 connections you can do. Depends on your max client connections. The moment when you resume, all the connections will start go to a standby instance. But if your pool size is very small, like 100 or 100, 120, 150, something like that, right? Only those many connections can be executed concurrently. So if you have more number of waiting connections, it will take 5 to 10 minutes to move everything into pool one by one. Okay. So there might be a little bit of latency you can feel in that time. So plan your maintenance window whenever you have less traffic, then it will be a smooth switchover. Okay. This is one feature. The second feature that I'm going to talking about, you can restart the PG bouncer without downtime. Again, it's another online activity. Okay. So PG bouncer is giving them something called a -r flag. So if you generally, this is the command we are going to execute by the service. Okay. If you are using initd or systemctl, it will have this command to start or stop the PG bouncer service. And the moment when you are using -r flag, right? So instead of killing the PG bouncer process and opening a new one, it will behave in a different way. Let's see how this thing works. So this is one of the log I captured when I run this command. So the moment when you executed this command, right, which is an online restart. So it will actually create a new instance. Instance in the sense, a new process it will create for the PG bouncer. That is the first activity. Second activity, the moment when it's created a new PG bouncer process, it will send a suspend command to the previous process, which means like, hey, I already created a new process. Now you don't want to accept any new connections. Let's stop all the incoming connections. And then it will send a suspend request to the previous process. Okay. Once all the suspend process are done, then this PG bouncer will start transferring all the connections from older process to new process. Okay. And that's this one. So in my example, I mentioned 10 pools, which means 10 connections, right? You can see this 10 connections. They all move to the new server, I mean new process. And once the transition complete, then it will send a signal to the old process. I got all the connections in my new instance. Now you can go and shut down yourself. It will send the shutdown command, and then the process will start resume its work from the new process. So this is completely online, uh, which is a really good feature, right? Yeah. And again, here is also any drawback, the same problem, latency. So if we have more connection in the pool, right, it will take some more time to transfer all the connections to the new process. Till the time your application will see like latency will be little bit higher. So make sure you can do this activity like whenever you have less traffic. But in my experience, I generated like 10,000 connections, and the switchover happened in like uh, 2 or 3 seconds. This is the benchmark. I personally did it, but before running it, we can do benchmark on your systems and decide the right timing for this restart. Okay. And now the other important topic, how do we monitor it? So you can monitor the PG Bouncer in two ways. Either PG Bouncer is having its own system database called PG Bouncer that you can run some commands to monitor it. Second thing, you can actually use a Prometheus exporter to do this process. So Prometheus exporter also executing the CLI command, get the result, and they will push it into Prometheus server. Okay. Let's see how to monitor via CLI. So here is my PG Bouncer configuration, and I'm connecting to the PG Bouncer system database. Okay. And then I'm going to run a PG bench test, which means like I'm going to create 800 connections. Now, if you run something command called show pools, this command will tell you like how many connections are happening and how many of them are running and waiting. So this is the result of this command. So the important thing that you need to understand, server active connections, which means like how many connections are actually established between your PG Bouncer and your PostgreSQL backend database. This is the exact value that you can see from your PostgreSQL side. Okay. And client active means how many clients are actually using the server connections. This is session mode, which means each client connection will get its own backend connections. So that's why you can see the values are similarly same. But if you open like transaction or any other pool mode, it can be different. Okay. And I was generating 800 connections, right? So due to the pool size, only like 200 something is allowed, and these many connections are actually in waiting mode. Okay, let's see how long they are waiting. That's why the other parameter. So this parameter will tell you the very oldest connection, how long it is waiting in the microseconds. And this is the same value in a seconds value. Okay, this is microsecond, this is seconds. So this is how you can monitor it. Now this value is increasing more than 2 or 3, then definitely you have to fine tune it. Okay, because even 2, 3 also high numbers. In my experience, 1 second would be better. If it is greater than like more than 1, 2, 3 something, definitely you need to increase the pool size, or we can increase the number of PG Bouncer instances so it can handle most connections very quickly. And finally, you can see the pool mode is session. Okay, this will notify you like this particular connection is using what kind of pool mode, that is session here. So how do we monitor with the Prometheus exporter? So there is some open source Prometheus exporter already available, and this is that command to install that Prometheus exporter. So it will exactly run the CLI command. So we already executed so pool size, right? It will execute the same thing. Oh, 1 second. What happened to the presentation? Yeah, sorry, I wrongly pressed the escape button. Yeah. So this Prometheus exporter will exactly execute the show pools command, and whatever result is written by that command, it will actually capture and send it to the Prometheus. And finally, you can actually visualize it with Grafana. This is that by default, like I didn't say any much dashboards for PG Bouncer. So we developed our own dashboard and we open sourced it already. So you can go to Grafana and you can find the database ID, this one, and you can get this exact dashboard. Okay. If anybody interested to develop like or improve the dashboard, you are welcome. So please go and give a pull request in our GitHub repo. Okay. So yeah, this is how you can monitor the PG Bouncer. Now let's see what kind of patterns that we can use to deploy the PG Bouncer. This is the most common method. So you have multiple applications. You have one PG Bouncer instance and it will talk to the PostgreSQL. But the drawback here it is you are running only one single PG Bouncer instance. So if something happens to the PG Bouncer instance, your application will not talk to the DB. So which is not recommended for a production use case. And that's why we have this kind of architecture. So you can run multiple PG Bouncer instances and have a load balancer on top of it. So your application will talk to the load balancer and load balancer will route the traffic to PG Bouncer, and then they will route the traffic to PostgreSQL database. This is much recommended if you want to like simplest architecture with high availability. The third pattern is, this is also most commonly used one. Instead of having PG Bouncer on different instances, you can actually run it on the same place where you are running your applications. This will also work. And I have seen like many customers are using this kind of approach. And one more good thing, if you are running your application on a container like Kubernetes or Docker, right, you can run PG Bouncer as a sidecar process. So it will support in that kind of pattern as well. And this is even matured version of pattern 3. So you have two PG Bouncers here. So one is application also having PG Bouncer, and separately you have PG Bouncer instance. This kind of architecture when you can use where you have like really huge number of database connections, like 50,000, 60,000 connections and more applications if you are running, that time you can use this kind of architecture. And if you want a more availability, then you can go with this kind of architecture. So this is a common deployment pattern. We can customize anything with this, like you can run your microservices, and only with this kind of architecture, you can mix and match this pattern and deploy your own version of PG Bouncer. Okay. And I think we are coming to the end. So what are things I didn't cover? So probably if you're going to deploy PG Bouncer, right, whatever information I shared will not sufficient for the production grade systems. So the other things that you need to take a look at it is there are a lot of timeout parameters like server idle timeout, idle connection timeout, server query timeout. There are a lot of timeout parameters are available in PG Bouncer. Just understand all of them and then set the right values. Second thing, PG Bouncer doesn't support any native high availability mechanism. So you need to deploy it on a highly available way. So in my previous pattern I mentioned, right? So you can have multiple PG Bouncer instances and have a load balancer on top of it. So this is one type of HA pattern. So yeah, it's your wish how you want to make your high availability. Third thing is TLS. It supports TLS connections. So you can give the certificates to your PG Bouncer. Then the connection between application and PostgreSQL will be encrypted. Server reset query. Okay, this is one of the most important parameter. Let's say I'm going to run my session with transaction isolation level read repeatable read. Okay, and if I using a transaction pooling mode, any connections can use the backend connection, right? And I set the isolation level equal to read repeatable read, and somebody is coming through same backend connection, they will also run the same isolation level. So how do we solve this problem? So whenever the connection going to close, right, before closing you can mention discard all kind of commands. So PG Bouncer will execute before closing the connections. So this also will be very helpful when you are having like more session level variables, or like more if you are running with more prepare statement, right? Then this parameter will definitely helpful. And after there are more parameters are still available, you can do custom level log configurations. You can do that. Yeah, you can just read the PG Bouncer documentation and understand like what other parameters are available. So yeah, that's all about PG Bouncer's one-on-one session. And you can actually use this link to get this deck. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Thanks everyone.